Hello there everybody, Sabata and welcome back to Tokyo Babel. I don't think I'm going to have time to record the entire finale of this, so it may end up being yet this part and then one more, unfortunately. Why the hell did I click out of that? A pair of trees stood isolated on the grass-covered fields, located a short walk from the assembly hall. Their trunks frail enough that merely brushing one's fingers against the bark made it peel off with ease. Lilith placed her hand upon the tree. It had long since withered away and would be of no use. A tree of utmost importance to humanity, now reduced to a crumbling shadow of its former self. The tree she had approached was the very same one that, along with the Tree of Life, once stood in the Garden of Eden and bore the fruit of knowledge, granting Adam and Eve wisdom. There was no one left to taste their fruits, nor anyone to care for the trees themselves, making them swiftly wither away. The moment Adam and Eve tasted the fruit of knowledge marked the beginning of a world built by mankind. They were exiled from paradise and learned how to work, how to fight, and how to live. They went forth and multiplied. As their passions and feelings began to course through the veins of the world, it grew in complexity, driven by a surging impulse only present in mankind. Humanity was a wonder that needed not the touch of immortality. They lived in the now, struggled with the present, and allowed their descendants, their next of kin, to carry on the legacy. Lilith quickly spun around as she was about to lean against the tree. The trunk, sorry. Was it a blunder on her part that she failed to notice the girl standing in front of her? No. For as the girl was on the verge of death, her presence could barely be felt. What? Death would claim her in mere minutes, alone and hidden from the eyes of all. Why is she almost dead? Smiling, she partially lifted her skirt, revealing a body smeared completely in blood. Her right eye was closed, with drops of blood trickling from it like tears. Jesus. Lilith's face contorted upon hearing Eve's gruesome description. A likely scenario in hell, but this was heaven, a place in solemn defiance of even the most trifling hint of corruption. Yet here we were now, seeing such atrocities being carried out like that was the natural order of things. Yep. Lilith's expression took on a peculiar hue. Rather than surprise, it reflected a feeling of loss. She did not believe in heaven being a place of perpetual wonder and bliss. However, despite all that, this realm was still meant to serve as a place of salvation for all mankind. Heaven would bring mankind salvation. Such was the ultimate, all-encompassing rule that governed it, standing far above all other laws. Putting aside those who lived and died as righteous men, what of those who might have walked the path of good, but were engulfed by the malice of another? Eve's faint giggle was the chime of bells. And where's Adam in all this? Did he not even attempt to protect her? Eve responded in the tone of someone thoroughly unconcerned with her own predicament. Lilith propped her up, then carried Eve over to the base of the other tree. Eve rested her back against the trunk, serenity coloring her features. Eve, her expression peaceful, exhaled a brief sigh before parting her lips to speak. Oh! Christ! Oh.
アダムって、あのアダム？
ええ。
あのアダムです。愚かですよね。ただ役割を与えられただけなのに、創造主と向かい合ってまでそれを全うしようとするんですから。
Damn! A slight hint of irritation peppered her tone.
あら、彼の妻にしては不遜な発言ね。
妻だと設定されただけです。彼も私のことなど何も思っていないでしょう。
Eve's one remaining eye shed a lone tear. Oh.
と愚かな男。私はあの人を騙し、ふざけってすらいたというのに、本当に愚かです。
そう。
お姉様。
Damn.
私はいろいろと測りました。
Lilith listened to the other's words with a stern, unchanging expression.
ねえ、そうでしょうね。あなたが何を考え、何を作したかはわからないけれど、何かしたのでしょうね。
Eve had been yet another piece in the puzzle of this calamity.
バスタロットと同じく、私もまた罰せられるべきでしょう。
そう。
私の目的はすべての滅び。そう。ただ何もかもをめちゃくちゃにしてやりたかった。
そう。
なのに私はこうやって平穏にまっとうに死んでいく。
そうでもないわ。
Eve seemed puzzled by Lilith's words. The latter wiped her sister's tears with a finger, then went on.
あなたは今泣いているわ。悲しくて絶望していて後悔しているのでしょ。そしてこのまま朽ちて消える。だからちゃんとあがなっているわよ。
Eve let another smile leave her lips as she directed her gaze at the heavens above.
そうなんですか。私は泣いているのですか。悔やんでいるのですか。謝りたいとそう願っているのですか。
She exhaled once again, closing her left eye in the process.
アダム、ごめんなさい。私はあなたの妻になどふさわしくなかった。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
Lilith maintained her silence while clutching Eve's hand, wondering exactly which of the two Adams she was apologizing to.
眠りなさい。今のあなたには睡眠が必要なの。
お姉様。そうですね。そんないで傲岸不遜なあの人はもっとずっと遅れてくるでしょうから。
Lilith couldn't find it in herself to shatter that sweet illusion of hers.
おやすみなさい。お姉様。
ねえ、おやすみなさい。
Eve passed on, and with no heaven or hell to accept it, her soul too would fade into nothingness.
作したことすら彼に知られなかったのは果たして彼女にとって幸福だったのかしらね。
Damn! Lilith's whisper melted into the wind as she gazed solemnly at the tree. A tree that, she felt, would never again bear fruit. Well, that was depressing! We regrouped with Lilith. I felt somewhat concerned by the look in her eyes, but she merely met my inquiry with a shake of her head.
それより次にどこへ行くか決まったのかしら。
玉座に行こうと思う。
神様のところ行くんだよね。
そういうことになる。
やっぱり死ぬのかな。
No one had a reply to that. Would we die? I needed to focus on reality, consider our chances. If God had truly gone mad, the chances of our survival were exceedingly low, unless we slayed him.
安心なさい。私が神を殺してあげるわよ。
Lilith might have been smiling, yet her gaze was cold as a winter night.
まあ、死んだら死んだで、そこまでか。
お気楽というわけでもないか。
I wouldn't say that she's being carefree, I would just say that she's just... Sormy. Sormy's words were both endlessly optimistic and endlessly terrifying. Lilith had overcome her fear through hatred. Sormy, on the other hand, had never appeared to feel anything resembling fear to begin with. As for Raziel...
私は神に問わなければならないから。あなたは誰にその永遠の概念を刻み込まれたのかと。壊れているのなら答えられないかもしれない。壊れているからこちらに害をなすかもしれない。その時は覚悟を決めることにする。
Now the question is whether it's going to go the Shin Megami Tensei route and make God's form that of just a gigantic face, or be completely formless, making it much more dangerous. But we'll see.
どういう覚悟？
この世から抹消する。いや、しなければならない。我々天使は人類を守護するという本分を見誤ってはならないから。
We are going to kill God! Raziel steeled herself through a sense of duty. All three of them would stand up against God, driven by their respective convictions. I was afraid. My legs were trembling. I felt something writhe within me, vomiting poison with each of its struggles. That poison permeated my body, giving me only pain. I had encountered this feeling once before. A cacophony of joy, glee, ovation, and happiness. Crowds shouting my name. People I had to guide and protect. Their faces seemed to melt into one intimidating mass. The same eerie feeling that welled up in my chest that day. Fear. Not of death, but of having to face them. A definite feeling that I was gazing into the eyes of the kind of terror not even a whole lifetime would be able to wash clean from my memories. A powerful emotion embedded in my mind, intense enough to make me fear for my life. Nonetheless, I would grit my teeth and endure. I would stand and fight without clinging to God, knowing I was far removed from divinity myself. And so we made for our destination on foot, with none of us even considering to make the journey through flight. We weren't simply doing that out of consideration for Sormi either. There was a far greater reason behind it. We simply dreaded the skies, not knowing where they might ultimately end up, should they soar amidst the clouds of this heaven. And so we walked for 2 hours straight, without as much as a sidelong glance at the desolate landscape stretching out before us, nor did we ever stop to rest, for that matter. Dark in heaven? Though once showered by eternal light, the whole of heaven had now become shrouded in gloomy darkness.
もうすぐ神の玉座。
A violent surge of discomfort rushed across my body as we drew closer, akin to my stomach being turned inside out. Even if I was ready to die, be killed, and endure unimaginable torture, I was not prepared to face a truly terrifying foe whose very existence instilled dread. Even the usually carefree Sormi went pale as chalk, her pace getting slower and slower.
すごく嫌な感じ。
Actually, now that I think about it, I kind of have an idea. Well, if it's not a giant head, and it's not an invisible force, what if God essentially killed Adam and then took over his body? Not a soul contested that. Had we truly reached the vicinity of God's throne?
見えた。あのカーテンの向こう側が神の玉座。
I mean, if I had to take a guess.
カーテン
Oh, hello. Sormi's reaction felt more than understandable. That wisp of glimmering light brimming ever so faintly in the darkness appeared more akin to a massive aura than an actual curtain. Other than the curtain, which encircled the whole of its vicinity, we saw nothing else. Perhaps a faint shade beyond the curtain, but that was it.
このカーテンの向こうにあのお方がいるはず。
I felt no presence whatsoever, nor did I hear any voices. The Lord could not be perceived with the five senses. My sixth, on the other hand, whispered gently into my ears, letting me know that something unmistakably lurked beyond these curtains.
開ける。
Raziel turned to the three of us as a final act of confirmation. The moment she pulled those curtains apart, the world itself would turn on its head. She needed to confirm whether or not we were ready for that. The demoness had hatred festering in her heart. The mortal girl had curiosity driving her. Finally, the angel felt a profound sense of duty. And I wrestled with a completely different emotion. We all steeled ourselves for what was to come once the curtains were pulled aside.
開ける。
Raziel took a few steps forward and whispered to what lay beyond the towering curtains.
言葉を聞きに参りました。
Whether or not it was a password of sorts, I could not tell. Either way, as the words left Raziel's lips, the curtain folded up to make way for us. We all took a deep breath and focused our attention on what lay beyond. And in the end, we beheld
いない
not a soul. The colossal throne of God stood empty, devoid of its master. The empty throne felt ominous somehow, like there was something there.
おかしい。いないはずがない。
探そうか。
Both Raziel, Lilith, and I found our voices gradually trailing off. He was there. I experienced an eerie sort of discomfort akin to having a snake coil about my spine, or perhaps an oversized slug slithering up my back. Sweat trickled down my forehead in thick beads as my legs wouldn't stop trembling. I was afraid, no doubt about that.
おかしい。
Raziel shook her head in denial. She too was dreading something. I'd never seen her this afraid. She wasn't merely fear-struck by the immense might of God. She feared whatever it was that sat upon that throne.
姿を見せろっての。
Lilith hurled a pair of fireballs forward, landing a clean hit on the throne. However, it remained in pristine condition, much like the curtains.
ダメか。
そのようだ。
I turned to Sormi, finding it odd how silent she'd been for the past few seconds.
君は
I could not finish my sentence.
何なのあれ。
That was the first thing she uttered. Her voice hoarse and unsteady from fear.
何って。
What was she seeing? Sormi, pale as a ghost, retreated a few steps, her face contorting violently as she cried out in desperation.
あれ。まさかあれが神様なの。やだ。怖い。何なのよあれ。
空見
The
空見
hell
を
is she
聞け
seeing?
君には見えているのか。
She shook her head several times, her body never ceasing to tremble. It took me less than a second to realize why. Geffel's eyes. That pair of eyes, said to reveal the true nature of all they looked upon, were showing Sormi, and only her, the truth.
何が見えている。そいつはどこにいて何をしている。
やだ。痛くない。痛くない。
Both Lilith and Raziel immediately hurried to Sormi's side.
空見、落ち着きなさい。空見。あれは気持ち悪い。
In the very same moment that Sormi's shriek pierced the air, her vision suddenly cut to black. She collapsed onto the floor, having lost her balance.
大丈夫か。
Sormi held up both hands in front of her eyes, looking thoroughly dumbfounded. With tears still rolling down her cheeks, Sormi began to laugh.
見えない。何も見えないや。
She giggled to herself like a madwoman. What in the world could have just happened?
空見玉座だな。玉座にいるんだな。
She simply nodded. I brandished the sword of the 7 deadly sins and unleashed the flames of wrath. No effect. In a sense, I was sort of expecting it.
違う。幻影なんてレベルじゃない。この次元に存在しない。世界から隔絶しているよ。
ラジエル。
我らが神は確かにここにいる。だけどいない。
So he's Schrodinger's cat? I looked at Raziel, trying to piece together what she had meant.
これまで我々天使も神の存在を感じ取ることはあっても直接視認することはめったになかった。そもそも神に姿はない。この玉座は常に空白だった。だけど同時にここに座る神が我々には見えていた。
I was gradually beginning to understand. God was a being who primarily acted by making his voice heard. Other than that, he lacked a physical form, and neither angels nor mortals had ever laid eyes upon him. Yet he was most certainly there. One could sense, perceive him. A light endowed with warmth that could be felt without even letting it touch one's skin. Raziel and Lilith both assumed the existence of such a light, but that in itself was a mistake. God had gone mad, his mind claimed by insanity. If that were the case, he might very well be yearning not for light, but darkness black as the night. He would remain silent, invisible, radiating none of his former light. He would merely exist here, nothing more.
みんないる？
空見。痛みはあるかい？
ちょっと目が痛いけど、まあ潰されたから仕方ないや。
They were crushed. Sormi mustered a feeble smile with her eyesight gone. She seemed to have been able to calm down to a certain extent. With the help of Lilith, she got back up on her feet.
まだここにいるよ。あの玉座に座ってる。
Upon hearing that, we all turned around in unison to glance at the throne. Naturally, we saw nothing. Yet Sormi claimed otherwise.
あれっていうのは神のことか。
私は全く信心深くないけど、これだけは断言できる。
Sormi's words sent a chill down my spine. My suspicions had been correct. She had indeed witnessed God's true form.
何かで私の顔に触れた。それから目をつぶしたのだと。削除実行中。
What? We all froze in place by the abrupt echo of a voice. Whose voice was that just now? It felt mechanical, artificial. Could it be? I stole a glance at Raziel. She seemed in complete shock as she shook her head, unable to believe her own ears. Impossible. Was that the voice of God?
あれの声だと思う。
That's a very weird voice to ever hear that belongs to... I'm just gonna shut up. Sormi spoke up again, her voice replete with dread. I felt the same way. Furthermore, I also agreed that with the suggestion that this voice belonged to none other than God. The lifeless, artificial tone carried a sinister eeriness that felt more than fitting for a being such as God. The kind of voice that shook us to the very core. Only one question remained. The simple yet endlessly difficult question of how one would slay a being that resided on a separate plane of existence, a creature only fools would take up arms against, one that defied any and all potential interference. Think, Setsuna, think! Come on, think! I recalled the eyes of Gethel, Kugutsu Sormi's eyes.
空見。君の目もう見えない。
うん、
もし僕が君の目をくれと言ったらどうする？
いいよ。私の目をあげる。だから頑張ってね。
Okay. She agreed without a shred of fear or hesitation.
あ、でも潰れちゃってるけど大丈夫？
I gently placed a finger on her eyelids.
多分なんとかなるだろう。代わりに僕の目を渡すよ。これで見。
Ugh. Ew. I'm betting not really, more like in a magic sort of sense. And with that, I proceeded to extract Sormi's eyes, one after the other. I plucked out my own eyes and plopped them into Sormi's sockets. Discomfort ultimately overcame pain as the procedure came to an end. Sormi rubbed her own eyes.
リリスとラジエルに見てもらえば大丈夫だ。
Alright then. I first needed to heal these damaged eyes. Partly due to Sormi being a powerless mortal, they had merely been crushed. Whoa. With the help of magic, I suppressed my body's rejection of the organ as I began to reconnect the optic nerves, exchanging my old eyes for the new. Accompanied by a sensation I could only liken to the turning of a key inside a lock, Gethel's eyes had connected with mine. And through them, all that was hidden would be revealed to me. This was the only method of me being able to perceive the visage of God.
リリス、下がってくれ。
After taking a deep breath and steeling myself for whatever was to come, I slowly opened my eyelids. Whoa. And as I did, my mind drowned in chaos and confusion.
なんだこれ。
My voice got stuck in my throat, fat beads of sweat moistening my forehead. Before me was an eerie-looking thing, defying all conventional laws, comprised of twisting, bending shapes and straight forms alike. Wow, so that's God? Calling it an object might be the most appropriate way to describe what I saw then. A being exhibiting a grotesque shape that lacked a face, a neck, a torso, limbs, and even internal organs. Yeah, this literally reminds me of Devil, or Shin Megami. I'm not gonna say which title, actually I kinda fucked up, but yeah. This kinda reminds me of something I'd seen in a Shin Megami Tensei game. I keep repeating that. A creature defying common sense, its visage devoid of any and all features that could be attributed to a living being. It sat upon the throne of God, a god that we all expected to be humanoid in appearance. Upon closer inspection, I spotted a mountain of corpses, angels and humans alike, piled up on the left side of the throne. Among them was a fresh addition, a mortal created to fit the role of the original man. A man I bore a certain level of animosity towards. Though I couldn't place my finger on the exact reason, the emotion in question felt very much akin to hatred. Despite that, not even he deserved a death like this. And another thing, deep down in my heart, his death filled me with a powerful surge of emotions. He fought God. He opposed the almighty creator he owed his very existence to. No doubt displaying his usual indifference and composure during the battle. The result was not a problem. It was the process that felt important.
ラジエル、リリス、空に移れてここから出て行ってくれ。できるだけ遠くへ。
刹那。
At this point, nothing she could say would convince me.
僕以外が彼を捕捉できない以上、ここにいてもらっても困る。ついでに言うと、こいつは絶対に話し合いに応じそうにないから。
I couldn't even tell if the abomination before me possessed the capacity for communication.
死なないで。
Quite the unreasonable demand.
死なないさ。こいつを倒す。
I mean, hell, your race on Dare is literally to make the impossible possible. Just as unreasonable as my reply.
あなたに任せるわ。私の像を空にもいいし、ラジオもいいし、すべてあなたに預ける。
I watched the three return to the outside of the curtain, all with their respective feelings in their hearts.
天道刹那。 了解した。
I turned to face the creature, curiously awaiting my next move. If there was one ray of hope to be found in this desperate situation, it had to be the fact that I no longer feared the being in front of me as an unknown, unseen threat. With the mysterious fiend finally having shown its true colors, the end to our struggles would be near. The one and only God, creator of the earth and the heavens, architect of the very cosmos, designer of the gargantuan system governing all parallel worlds. Did madness twist him into the shape I beheld now? Or had he always been like this? None of that mattered any longer. I had but one mission to carry out, as a representative of angels, demons, and mortals alike, as the incarnation of the evil detested by God and his angels. To commit deicide.
やるだばおと天道刹那参る。
My declaration of war against God thundered loud in the air. The creature responded with a sound that resembled neither a voice nor a shriek, but the terrible creak of colossal machinery. I held my Picati sword high, intent on tearing the monster to shreds with a series of sickle-like strikes imbued with the power of air magic. As I swung my blade downwards, it unleashed a magical wind blade sharp as steel. Would it launch a counterattack or completely evade mine? Neither, apparently. The creature simply let my strike land a clean hit. A white, bleach-like liquid sprayed forth from its wound as opposed to mere blood. After a blind flash of light, my vision cut out for a split second. Once the phenomenon had ended, I took another look at God. Its prior wound was nowhere to be found. I launched a great variety of attacks from the Picati sword. Fire, water, wind, earth, and each of the 7 beasts' powers. All proved useless. God continued to allow each and every attack to land a hit, yet none of them bore any effect. Attacking the creature was beyond pointless. It neither evaded nor erected defenses. It didn't even heal itself. The very laws of the cosmos prevented God from being hurt. I hurled a series of vile curses at the monster. It was invincible, immune to even the tiniest of scratches. Every time an attack hit God, the very causalities of the universe shifted, eliminating the realities where it had sustained damage. For God had to remain invincible, ever free from pain. No matter the damage, it restored it in the blink of an eye, though not through healing or mending. A local, retroactive shift in time could be a more appropriate way to put it. A thin, paper-like thing extended towards me with a low rustle, entangling my arms. A moment later, I heard the crunch of something being broken. I saw my left arm twisted in an impossible angle. The sheer intensity of the pain nearly made me black out. The creature then proceeded to crush my left shoulder with terrifying ease. I began immediate recovery through both my magic and internal nanomachines, yet every time I swung my left arm, it twisted and convulsed violently. My healing simply couldn't keep up. Ultimately, my arm ended up getting easily torn off with a sickening rip. I bit back a scream of agony as I attempted to launch another attack, but in the end held myself back. It would be completely pointless in my current state. The question resounded within me. What made God, God? I would soon be killed. The fear of imminent death birthed desperation, preventing me from heeding the incessant whispers of my mind. God was devoid of any and all qualities of a living being. It amputated my left arm with merciless mechanical precision. I did not fear death in battle. However, the knowledge of dying without ever getting the chance to engage in a proper fight filled me with both dread and a sense of humiliation. The creature's proclamation, the word of God, reverberated in the area, its contents instilling terror. Did that refer to only me or the whole of angel, demon, and mankind? I speculated it to be the latter. All the universe belongs to me. The very cosmos exists to be shaped as I see fit. The raison d'etre of the all-powerful, omnipotent God. Could it have been creation? Or perhaps to decide? It created, then decided. Regardless of how much free will we possessed as we went about our lives, the final decision lay with that thing. Even if we were to disobey, no such rule existed to allow it in the first place. It had never been deemed necessary to exist. The word invincible couldn't even begin to encompass its colossal prowess, for the very assumption of fighting it was folly incarnate. One couldn't fight it. The whole of this universe and all its glory belong to God and God alone. Same here, bro. Screw you and all your goddamn omnipotence. You opened your eyes to the terror of eternity and that alone caused you to go mad? Piss off. You're trying to tell me that everything that happened had been according to your wishes? The creature once again tightened its grip, entangling itself around my right arm like a set of bandages, intent on tearing it right off. I kicked the discarded Picati sword into the air, hurling it at the invisible arm holding mine in place. The resulting magically imbued strike cut into the invisible appendage, freeing me from its grip. As usual, however, the thing's arm returned to its prior unharmed state in the blink of an eye. This was no longer a battle, but complete one-way domination. Was there any way to seal its constant overturning of causality? Any way to slay this abominable god? None! If I were to name one thing, the one source of power that could destroy this thing in one fell swoop, without allowing it even a fraction of a second to react, something that could completely, thoroughly eradicate it down to the cellular level. I needed, yearned for, that magnitude of power. I couldn't for the life of me come up with anything overwhelming enough to triumph against this impossible foe, lacking even the slightest clue as to what could possibly trample over God's raison d'ere. I wasn't even given a chance to test all possible options. Instead, God merely continued to toy with me like a predator. My left arm had been torn clean off, my legs crushed beyond recognition, my spine twisted. God took a long, long time to carefully and thoroughly destroy me, never tiring of its brutal work, almost as if the very concept of boredom was non-existent in its mind. Every time it found new ways to torment me, another wave of explosive pain would wash over my body. Even still, I endured it and continued to think. I had time to think until Raziel would once again come to this side of the curtains. As I turned my neck to look behind me, I saw the impossible. All I could ever do was record. Records came in a multitude of varieties. Records on wars, everyday events, natural disasters, and much, much more. There existed forbidden records as well. I pulled the Sefer Raziel from my pocket dimension and began reading that forbidden record. In other words, a record on God. God would never show himself in front of mankind or even the angels. Though his divine word and punishment, God would guide men and angels alike. God was all-knowing and omnipotent. The past, the future, the present, even space and time yielded to God's will. I gradually began leafing through the pages at a quickened pace. So how would one define the one and only God? A being existing in a dimension different from ours, his true nature the subject of mere speculation at best. He who had transcended all of us, existed far beyond our reach. During the great war of the angels and demons, Lucifer ascended all the way to the throne of God, yet ultimately failed to slay him. Now I knew why. He could not find the means to slaying one who existed on a different plane. Attack, defense, evasion, all meaningless against him. In fact, the very act of confronting him was impossible. Gethel's eyes would be able to see the true nature of even God, yet the thought of wishing to see God's true form would never even cross the mind of Gethel, a devout believer. At least, it shouldn't have. In short, the only means to witnessing God's visage would be to claim Gethel's eyes. If observing him became possible, would that enable intervention? It should. The next page was blank, indicating that the possibility of intervention was unknown. I pulled out my pen, wishing that to be true. With pen in hand and determination in my heart, I began fervently writing in my book. Interfering with God was impossible, for he held supreme command over the laws of this universe. The moment interference occurred, he need only erase that reality and create one where it didn't. Even assuming that Lucifer had managed to reach the throne of God to behold his true visage, that would have only been the first step towards an impossibly difficult goal. In that case, how would one slay God? It was impossible. No weapon existed that could slay God. Knives, holy swords, demonic spears, witchblades, bombs, missiles, poison, and nuclear strikes, all useless. God was not a being meant to be slain. Yet if we were to unleash an all-powerful attack to eradicate God with, he would need to be dragged into our own dimension. And the way to do that, I halted my pen, I was at a loss, unable to figure it out. I who held the power to record all the secrets of the cosmos and creation. Was it impossible? Nay, never. This book held the solution. I merely did not know the way to it. The way to drag God into this dimension. If we knew that, we could launch a genuine attack against him. But how? 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 I couldn't tell. Nor was I certain if such a method even existed to begin with. God could rewrite causality, rendering himself immune to all harm while inflicting infinite damage on the opponent. If God was immortal, he needed to be made mortal. If he boasted inhuman speed, he needed to be made slow. That impossible had to be made possible. That was all we had to achieve, nothing more, nothing less. The impossible had to be made possible. I had finally understood. Casting an intense gaze at the pages of the book in front of me, I exhaled a long sigh. I was able to reaffirm my very own raison d'être.
ラジエル、
リリス、空見を守ってあげて。私はやはり神と向かい合わなくてはならない。
セツナのため。
セツナのため。
Setsuna had given me so much. If it wasn't for him, I would have withered away, both physically and mentally. And now, in his absence, I realized how desperately I needed him. Which is why I had to go now, putting my mind and very life on the line.
よし。惚れた男のために行ってきなさい。
ラジエル、二人で戻ってきてね。無論、死に赴くのではない。私と彼はまだやるべきことが残されているから。
In order to live, I would stay and fight. I would thrust myself into the jaws of death, and I would give birth to a miracle. I was ready to cast aside anything and everything to make that happen. Raziel stood before the throne of God. If God had eyes, they were most certainly fixed upon the angel. God may have been able to harm us, but we couldn't harm or interfere with him. Such was the rule set by God himself. As long as nothing overturned it, we had no chance to even engage in combat with him. For the slave could never disobey its master. So please, Raziel, run while you still can. I mustered a faint croak to warn Raziel, but I couldn't make out whether or not she heard me. This was God's dimension. Once it began its interference toward ours, they could no longer be separated. Once God extended its hand with a certain intention, my life would be at its mercy, regardless of the distance. That was another one of its rules. The one almighty God was no exaggeration, for its power was absolute and undefiable. No one could stop it. Not the angels, nor the demons, and certainly not mortal men. Raziel knelt down before the empty throne and began to repent.
我が神よ、お許しください。
She then proceeded to open the book she had been carrying under one arm.
罪を犯します。私という存在を想像したあなたへの反逆を犯します。あなたという存在への冒涜を犯します。私という命をかけてそんな罪を犯します。
Raziel's tone was utterly bereft of fear or regret. She threw the open book into the air, keeping it aloft indefinitely.
そう、悟った。理解した。私のレゾンデートルは記録でしかない。にもかかわらず、私はこの震災を引き起こすほどの力があった。力があったのは私ではなくこの本だ。セファーラジエル。この本は私が思っていた以上の力を得てしまった。
God towered above us in silence, as if it hadn't heard Raziel's proclamation at all. Could it have comprehended the gravity and severe implications of Raziel's words? Or was it simply awaiting what would happen?
すべてはこの本。セファーラジエルは天地開闢、あらゆる秘密を記録したもの。記録はすべて真実、正しくあろうとした。す 全ての天使がそれを信じ、全ての悪魔もそう信じた。主よ、あなたですらそうお考えになっている。その認識がこの本を神に等しき力を持つ存在へと変化させた。歪んだ事柄すら真実へと生まれ変わらせる。それがこのセファーラジエル、究極にして禁忌の力。誰かが私を使って悪用した力。今私は己がレゾンデートルを廃棄しよう。虚偽の記録を刻んで真実を握りつぶそう。
A series of bright, shimmering letters manifested from the pages of the Sefer Raziel.
神よ、どうかお覚悟を。あなたは少し狂いすぎた。
The letter shifted in front of Raziel, forming a wall. Let God reveal his divine image to us. Let him be physical and tangible. A command transcending dimensional boundaries ordered Raziel to stop, only to fall on deaf ears. The ritual continued, absolute and undefiable. God shall perish. Its thundering echo resounded in the air, commanding God to be dragged onto our own plane. God shall perish, 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 God shall perish. He shall die from poisoning, from sharpened blades, hardened fists, the elements of wind, fire, water, and earth. He shall yield before relentless bloodlust and succumb to hatred fierce as hellfire. Causality had been distorted. The laws of the cosmos had changed. The cogs of the universe sung a fresh melody.
レゾンデートル、歪曲、イクリブリームブレイカー。
God's very own laws had betrayed him, his divine prowess, the dagger in his back. The Sefer Raziel distorted its own raison d'etre, for no longer did it record the truth, but forced whatever was recorded to be the truth, even if it was a lie. A complete upsetting of causality, turning the very laws of the universe on their head. God has manifested upon this plane, this reality, this Tokyo Babel. Raziel now looked upon the exact same thing as I, an artificial-looking mass of shapes and angles that would most certainly hesitate to call God. Yep. Raziel stood still, being at a complete loss. Shit! She leapt backwards at my command. A moment later, the very air distorted, accompanied by a sound resembling that of a punctured tire. The very air occupying that space had been eradicated by God. Raziel called out to me, her expression twisted in shock upon seeing what I had been reduced to. Did I look miserable? Pitiful? Yet Raziel merely whispered into my ear, smiling. Indeed, I was still alive. I see. Having confirmed that obvious fact, I proceeded to reboot myself. Through the upsetting of causality, damaging God had now become possible. In short, God had merely become a living being bearing that name. He could be harmed, engaged in battle, and even slain. However, God could once again overturn reality by rewriting the records of the book. Slaying God would only remain possible for an exceedingly limited amount of time. Furthermore, the fact that God had now been made possible to kill didn't mean it was any weaker than before. That thing was still very much the monster that created the universe. Unless we launched a full frontal attack to completely eradicate it from existence, our fates would be sealed. I decided to postpone the regeneration of my body. As long as I still had legs to walk with and a free arm to use, I wouldn't need much else. Raziel picked up the Picati sword laying on the ground and hurled it my way. I held its grip firm with one remaining hand and proceeded to slash at God's arm. Accompanied by the sharp hiss of steel and the fresh sensation of hitting concrete matter, I sliced the arm right off. The monster's milky blood sprayed into the air as it writhed in protest, almost like it truly was a living being. Flashing a mocking smile, I informed it of what had just transpired. At times, overwhelming physical pain could ruin the mind as well. Right now, God savored agony to that extent. A terrifying mechanical shriek shook the air. God had cried out in rage. Its voice would have no doubt driven any ordinary man to raving insanity. Yet in its current state, God was neither invisible nor being transcending causality. It certainly possessed power and endurance far surpassing ours, but at the end of the day, it was now just another monster.
お前はまだ神だ。だが物理的に干渉され、観測され、破壊され、殺されることが可能性として存在する神だ。
My steel flew without hesitation, impaling what looked like the creature's amputated arm thing. Azure flames danced into view, reducing the arm to ashes.
だからこうして燃えもするし、灰にもなる。生きているから
My lips curled into a smile, and no doubt a wicked one at that.
だ。ヤルダ・バウトの名にかけて貴様を塵に変えてやる。行くぞ！
And with those words, the curtains had risen on the insane battle waged by the one-armed false god and the monstrous creator. I roared with passion, pushing my vocal cords to the very limits as I summoned the beast of gluttony to strike God down. What's sad is that I really have no time now. I've actually run out of time for recording. And I'm pissed off. I'm fucking pissed off that I have to stop now. I want to kill God. Congratulations, Tokyo Babel. You've reignited my desire to destroy God. Thank you very much. And unfortunately, that is the worst cliffhanger. I keep saying that's like the worst cliffhanger, but unfortunately, this is possibly one of the worst cliffhangers where I'm going to go kill God. So sorry, guys, but I'm gonna have to end it here. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm sorry, and I will see you guys in the next video. I deeply apologize. You feel free to light the pitchforks and try to kill me. I deeply apologize for this. You guys deserve every reason to hate me right now.